Awesome. Are you ready to go?
We are green for go. Okay. Joseph. Hello, Joseph. Congratulations. You are the first person on my screen to have joined this session, um, which is awesome. Okay. We've got quite a lot of people who will be joining as we go through. Joseph, I kind of want to ask you about your really intricate background. But I'm not entirely sure that you're able to unmute yourself, which gives me a massive sense of power. Oh, wait a minute, you just muted. Okay, Joseph, tell me, what is it we're looking at behind you? Ah, yeah, and I also remember this from last time. There is a little bit of a delay in terms of this conversation and what goes out live. Okay, all right. Is my audio working at all? I am talking. I'm afraid not, Joseph. Never mind. The mystery of your background will remain with you. And maybe we'll find out later on. Okay, so obviously we have the tell us where you're from, but frankly, no one cares where you're from. What we're interested in is how, or what I'm interested in is how I can help. And in order for me to know how I can help, there are two things which actually would be useful to know. And the first one is how many years experience have you got in any job? Like, are you early, mid, senior, super senior in any particular career? So drop that in the chat. And then the second one is, are you in a job, in a climate, or in a sort of a job at the moment, or are you looking to make a transition? So those two things is, are you in a job right now, and are you looking to pivot into something else? And then how long you have in terms of any degree or any career that you've been working on. So 15 years, 15 years of entry level, Michael. Also, Michelle. Sorry, Michelle. Okay, so this kind of thing is really helpful because it's going to change how I deliver what I have to deliver and what I can help with. Okay, Joseph, thank you. Who else have we got on this list so far? Susan, you're the next person. Susan Demo. By the way, I do this a lot. I kind of just pick on the person that I can see on my screen. And bearing in mind, I've got the slides to share and the conversations to have in the chat window. I can only actually see about 3 people at a time. Susan, that was you. So drop it in, Susan. How long have you been working? And are you looking to pivot, or are you looking to find a way to make your current role more impactful? Okay, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. 10 years. Oh, Victoria, you're in bold. I don't know how you've done that. Maybe it's that easy. Susan, 30 years in biotech and I want to pivot. All right, okay. I should bear that in mind. All right, how many people have we got in here? We're heading towards 50. Okay. The other thing I was going to say is that I have done enough of these to know that at some point, somebody in the chat will come up with this brilliant idea of, hey, why don't we all share our LinkedIn addresses, which is genuinely a really important part of coming to these sort of things. The problem then is if the chat just fills up with people posting link, posting link, and at the end of the session, the link closes and you don't have anyone's information. So now what I do is the QR on the screen is just a Google Sheet, simple sheet. Go there, put your LinkedIn details in there, and then you'll all have everybody's LinkedIn details so you can all then follow and connect and share. And there's enough information in there to say, I'm interested in this kind of sector, if you know. So it's a far more effective way of starting one of these sessions to build a bit of community. Okay. So I'm going to leave that there. And before we get to hear from the Working Climate crew about the mission and why we're all here together, I thought I should probably start by saying that we've only got 90 minutes here, and then therefore it's going to be very intense because we have a lot of stuff to do, and there's a lot of things and some exercises which I think are going to be helpful. But the real value will come afterwards. The value isn't like just listening, it's what you do because you've been here now. So as you go through this workshop together, not only do you need a pen and paper to make some notes and do some of the exercises, but I want you to listen carefully for the thing that resonates most, where you can then say, oh, yeah, that's the thing I'm going to do. And if there is one thing that I want you to take from this session, it is this. Without structure, you will fail. That's it. I'm going to say that again because it's so important. And that is, without structure, you will fail. Because the barrier between you and your contribution are many, both internal and external. The market shifts, the overwhelming complexity, the imposter syndrome, the overwhelm. And without having this step-by-step approach, the amount of time that you waste is massive. So the one thing, it is structure your career. Whether you are looking to make a change inside your current organization and make it an impact there, or pivot into something entirely new, you have to have structure. Okay, so I'll come back to the Climate Connect QR for those who are joining a little bit late. Don't worry, I'm often late. It's no judgment. But before we get into the material proper, I'd love to let our hosts tell us how and why we're all here gathered on this call today. So Amelia, tell us about the awesome work that Work and Climate is doing.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks for being here and talking to us all about careers in climate. So welcome, everybody. If you're new to Work on Climate, double welcome. Work on Climate is a global community of professionals that are seeking to use their talent to solve climate change and build a regenerative green economy where all of our work strengthens natural and human systems. So we help you build relationships and find opportunities to use your strengths and act together with others to create the regenerative transformation that we want to see. You can scan these QR codes down here at the bottom of the screen or click on the links in the chat for more information on our community and how to join or get involved. And so I just wanted to also note that this session will be recorded and it'll be put on our YouTube. So you guys can check that out later if you have to leave early or if you missed something. And we expect to have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A with Andy. And otherwise, yeah, go ahead, Andy. And thank you again for joining us.
Okay, thank you very much. So there are a couple of people who are experiencing difficulty editing via mobile on the Climate Connector. But I can also see lots of people are managing to get through to that. So I've just dropped the direct link to this sheet. I mean, it's not exactly high tech. It is genuinely just a Google sheet. I just dropped it in the chat, which may or may not help. Okay, so you are here, I hope, because you want to make an impact and you want to make the world a better place and to fill that existential void left by the pointless work, or possibly just to get a job. But I am here because of one question. And that question is this. Now, this question came from the French CMO of one of the world's most prominent cosmetic companies in a boardroom with 30 of their leadership team, and they were eagerly awaiting their answer. Now, if you can picture this, I was live on a 2-meter screen at the head of the room from my home office. And I'd spent the last 3 weeks pushing my entire team to work evenings and all the previous weekend working around the clock to pull together the data that would answer this, because I was working in marketing research at the time. My team were exhausted. I was on the edge of a breakdown. And when this question came midway through the session, I just had this white noise and the increasingly loud voice in my head, which was just saying, what the fuck am I doing here? And the hours of stress and the fake urgency, all for answering a question about the insecurities that drive skincare routines in 11 to 18-year-olds in China. Meanwhile, the world was on fire, and my only contribution at the time was taking my own cup to Starbucks. So this was the moment. this is the reason I'm here now and I do what I do. Because directly after this meeting, I quietly quit and I switched my existing coaching and mentoring practice into a direction that wasn't aimed at helping corporate high performers get better at things that I didn't care about, or them, most of it, but to help people, talented, capable professionals like you, find work that actually matters. So that left me with my mission being your contribution. And my route to this point was a typical one. It was business school and then top tier consultancy and a stint at Citibank and then doing internal strategy and stepping into advisory and taking startups through to exits and all of that kind of stuff. So I had firsthand experience at multiple career shifts. But it occurred to me that the biggest lever I could pull was helping other people make the shift that I shifted in. So I ended up working in climate tech and doing some advisory work there. But now I help bring talent to the edge of this climate crisis that we're all in. And I've helped hundreds of professionals get started in climate without starting over. And today, I sincerely hope to be able to help you too. And the important thing I want you to hear, as well as the without structure, you're going to fail, is that you are not broken, you are not behind. What you're doing is something really hard. If you're trying to change lanes mid-career into a space where the rules aren't always clear, it's just hard. Whether that's trying to change a company from the inside, whether that's trying to find a whole new thing for you to do instead, it's hard. But the good news is there is process. And there are some very common mistakes that you can avoid if you know them. And the biggest mistake that I see is focusing on the wrong things. So in today's workshop, I promise that there will absolutely be no help for your resume, because change will not come from changing your CV. It will come from changing your calendar and the things that you do. And bluntly, you are all smart, capable, intelligent people that could probably find the 9 hot tips to make your CV stand out because you all know how to use Google or ChatGPT. I hope. So, just to set expectations, we are not going to waste our time talking about polishing CVs. What we are going to do instead is we're going to talk about what actually counts as a climate job, because this is another common mistake that I see. People believing that there has to be this golden unicorn opportunity, which is all about working in a mission-driven organization that blah, blah, blah. It's not. We're going to talk about your existing leverage and how you can use what you already have to move in the right direction. And then we're going to finish with the 3 essentials for your climate career. Okay, so I asked it at the start, who's job hunting actively and who's here to make an important impact on where they are. And looking at the comments, I got the impression that most people are looking to transition, currently unemployed. It does lean more towards I wanted a new job. But either way, you're in the right place today. And I want to begin with a look at what we mean by contribution. Because what I see when I'm working with my clients is that time and again, people start by looking to job boards as their route to make an impact. And that misses so much, because I think that too often we mistake contribution for a job. So we're going to spend a few minutes just to unpick this. And we're going to start with this question of how you make your contribution. And there are 2 sides to this. There is the content and there is the context. Now, you might find it easier to think of this as your role and the sector, but I have deliberately chosen much more open terms because we want to break down the thinking that it's just jobs as the end goal and open ourselves to this broader context of a career, hence the word contribution rather than job. So, content, what you do. Context, where you do it. And the question we have to address is, where are you wanting and willing and able to change? Which of these sectors? Now, this is as complicated as my diagrams get. What I found is that at the start of the journey, most people start believing that everything has to change. They will need a new way of doing things in a new situation. And let's face it, a good proportion of why we want to make a contribution is because what we're doing right now isn't working anymore. And it makes us sad. So for us, it feels so pointless and contrived in the face of a world on fire. So naturally, we look at making big changes and shaking things up and making a dramatic impact. So we go looking at jobs that have climate in the title. We want a new role and a new company, right up here in this quadrant here. But part of my work is to remind you that this double step, this twin change, is the hard one, is the hardest one, and that often your contribution can consist of any combination of role and context, including, of course, this one. Same role, same context, same content, same context. So a job doesn't have to say climate to have an impact. It's about the remit that you have, your decisions, your influence. HR, finance, ops, marketing, every job has touch points that count. And through it, you can make your contribution. So if you're working in a company right now, you can immediately start thinking about the climate connotations of the work that that organization does and your ability to influence it. So a couple of examples. I had a client working in procurement, keen to escape so that he could make his impact. And as part of the work together, we reviewed the levers that he could pull, where he was, and as part of building a proof project to support his transition, he changed the supply criteria of the company procurement process to include a requirement for supply chain data. And that enabled the GHC accounting transparency, and that enabled a much better understanding of his organization's impact. Now, it was a small change, but the scale of it was massive. Similarly, I worked with a lady called Juliana. She was in marketing and comms, and working on this same principle in the same content in the same organization. We put together the case to trial a shift in messaging around her company's green credentials to explore the consumer response. And showing that it was positive gave her an increased mandate to push for shifts in company practice that would allow her to be, allow them to support further green credentials messaging. So these two things are not mutually exclusive. And what we often find is that they often reinforce each other, because action now builds the stories and the skills that fuel your future pivot. So building these proof cases, doing the work, showing that you can actually influence and make change is great case study work for when you're looking to make a more significant pivot. So when I was thinking about this workshop, I spent I spent way too long back in my career theory books. And I prepped a massive introduction to identity, self, and career, and built a complicated diagram to show the multitudinous ways in which each of us can contribute and how your choice will be a blend based on the unique push and pull factors, which are you. But then I actually realized that I was enjoying that way too much, and I'd spent way too many hours in that. And I took a look up, and on the side of my monitor screen, just here, if you can see, is a post-it note which simply says, "How does this help?" So sadly, I scrapped all of that, and I had put a simple summation point right here. It's a line in the sand that I borrowed from Jamie Alexander from Project Drawdown and her 2011 TED Talk. And it's simply this: every job is a climate job. Climate job is any job where your effort moves us away from harm and towards regeneration. It's not the job title. It doesn't matter nearly as much as the problem that you are solving and the contribution that you can make. So whether that is in a climate company or in a, I guess, traditional company that can improve its practices. So remember when I asked about whether you're looking to change the system around you or looking for, changing a job? In many ways, it doesn't really matter. What matters is a consideration of this: your levers of influence. What do you influence? Is it budget or process or messaging or product? How can you reduce harm and increase this positive impact? What do you know that other people don't? This is the first lever. You already hold the keys to certain doors, and we're going to do a quick exercise to try and figure out a very quick dip to have a bit of a think, like a framework to start thinking about the levers of influence that you have right now. So if you have a pen and paper, wave your pen. I can see 6 people. Thank you, Susan. Excellent. Who else is waving it? I can see Patrick. Excellent. Kelsey, Nicola. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. if you haven't got a pen and paper and you can't wave it, it's because I assumed you are on a trendy digital notebook or some other recording device. Okay, we're going to spend 7 minutes and do a quick exercise called leverage mapping. So the first thing I want you to do on your blank sheet of paper is write down 3 things you influence in your current role. Now, in every organization, the whole purpose of the organization and your role in it involves the management of resources in the broadest possible sense of that word. And it is your ability to influence those, which is kind of what jobs are. So take a moment now to think about, is it budgets or tools? Is it some decisions that you influence? Do you handle or own relationships? Can you apply cultural soft power and pressure? Do you have a say in supplier choice? What is it in your current role, if you have one, that you can currently influence? And if you don't have one because you're currently unemployed and looking for work, what did you have the last time that you were working? And whilst you do that, so as not to interrupt you, I'm going to go on mute and I'm going to operate my awesome standy-uppy, sitty-downy chair and desk to sit down. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes for that. If you have any questions about that exercise, just drop something in the chat. Excellent work. Emotive. Okay. I'm going to give you 30 seconds more. Hopefully you've got a list of 3 or more. What I can't see, by the way, is I can't see myself on this. And I know I've just moved my standy up to a sit-down desk. Oh, aha! Okay, good. I'm still present. Excellent. Remove spotlight. Ah, clever. Okay. So you've got 3 or more levers in impact. The next question is taking your levers of influence. Ask the question, how might pulling this lever make a climate positive impact, no matter how small? And just to be clear, we've kind of got 3 minutes for this, right? So let this be the spark, the curiosity builder that starts your thinking, like the germ for the seed for something which is going to be bigger. A few examples, it might be something as dead easy as starting a lunch and learn in your team. But it might be something like creating a carbon shadow report with simple online tools to give you a sense of a particular team or product launch or campaign and the carbon footprint associated with that. It might be advocating to get climate added to the risk register. So it might be a risk or opportunity if you have something in supply chain or in brand reputation or in regulation. It's something that you could do with a conversation, a 15-minute explainer over lunch, and then go and speak or work with the risk team. Could be piloting a green KPI embed one of the climate-related metrics into your regular team reporting. Just something to bring it onto people's radar. And then nominate a different person each month to distribute ownership and, again, spread the awareness. So there's lots of creative, different ways of doing this. I'm going to stop talking and just give a few minutes to have a think about, for each of your levers, how could you use that for a climate positive outcome? And if you finish early, then drop a few ideas into chat. Because one of the great things about workshops and webinars like this is the opportunity to learn from each other, the opportunity to validate your own thinking, but also see that someone else is struggling sometimes. So no matter how confident or otherwise you are about this idea, about a lever you could pull or a thing that you might do, drop it in the chat. You might find that someone will build on it for you. Joseph, moral compass document. That sounds like a brilliant idea. Yeah. We developed similar, or I've helped a number of organizations develop similar. You could do that even just within a particular team. Susan, yes, in at least in the UK, particularly UK government RFPs, a climate score is part of the procurement process. I can't remember the metrics, but there's definitely a set of ESG metrics which are required for public money to be spent. So that's a great approach. Okay. Now, obviously, in 4 minutes, we're not going to solve this. But like I said at the start, what's most important is what you do after this conversation. So when you do come back to it, here is and I know this is slightly awkward, bearing in mind we've just talked about the overuse of ChatGPT, but in this case, the use outweighs the cost. It's such a moral minefield. But here is a prompt to use, which is going to speed this up, right? This is designed to be specific for your role, your context, and not require either a change of job or permission. However, paper exercises are all well and good, but as you know, action beats analysis every time. So the final step here is just to scribble down in 30 seconds for one of the ideas that you've got, the first step you can take to initiate this change. And leaning back into my strategy consulting days, it's going to be a combination of people, process, and tools. So who do you need to work with? What tools need to be in place? What processes need to be reviewed to bring this into reality? So take this germ of an initiative, a change, an impact, and scribble down process, people, or tools, or all three. And I'm going to count down for 60 seconds on this. Okay. So this idea, this initiative, this change, it may have a small impact, but it is so much more than that. And this matters because when you're building at the climate edge, what you do now leads to bigger and better things later. So it might support your pivot or transition if that's your goal as well. But it also gives you credibility within your organization. It creates real world proof and stories, either for future conversations about the next iteration, the next thing that you want to do, or future interviews. And critically, it strengthens your personal narrative and your confidence. So even if you're planning to exit, start creating your track record now because it becomes the how behind your why. Okay, this is not easy, like I said, especially if you're trying to do this in isolation. So the rest of this workshop is designed to walk you through like a career momentum framework that's going to make this as easy as possible. And we're going to do it by addressing three things. Number one is clarity. Now, clarity is not optional. You can't optimize without a goal. And in a world of limited time and energy and attention, clarity gives you leverage. And I'm talking about clarity of intent, the thing that you are going to do, the problem that you are going to solve. Next is the classic. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And this concept of community. Now, your community of practice is your career safety net. So you don't need to go it alone. You will learn faster, stay more motivated, and you will get noticed along the way when you are building as part of a community. You need the support, the ideas, and the visibility, all of which lives in your networks. So your community today also becomes your community, so your opportunities of tomorrow. And then lastly, commitment, because action over analysis. Commitment becomes your differentiator. You can start small, you can stay visible, and you can work with this resistance, knowing how hard it is, not against it. Now, after a short break, we're going to look at each of these in turn with very practical steps to take action now, soon, and later to keep moving forward. But because 90 minutes is a long time for anyone to give anybody any amount of attention, we're going to take a 3-minute pause. Oh, 2 minutes. 2 minutes pause. Now, like I said, I do a lot of these. I run groups and cohorts with this kind of stuff, and you have an option. You can either go for a stroll, or I'm going to stand up and I'm going to do some desk stretching, and you can join me if you wish. I need to move my chair, move my desk up. some energy back in. So 2-minute break. I will see you back here in whatever 37 past whatever hour it is where you are. But if you're staying and you want to, we can do hands above your head and shake your hands. Yes, thank you. People I can see moving. Excellent, well done. And then we can do lean all over. I'm not a physician. Please consult a doctor, etc. Disclaimers. Okay, and wiggle your arms that way. And back this way. And wiggle your arms that way. What an unsightly shot of my armpits. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Okay, and now we're going to, if you can, gently touch as far down to the floor as you can. And back up. And we're going to balance on the left leg, lift the right leg, balance on right leg, lift left leg. And we're going to go a big shaking out like that. Okay. Oh, and I'm going to have a little bit of water because I can. It's right here. Okay. That's not big. Yeah. Oh. What's the HTML view? Oh, she's not able. Ah, Kelsey. That is a great tip. I didn't know about that. Is that something to do with somebody's? Sorry, Kelsey. I'm looking in the chat where you've talked about.
Yeah, so your exercise had me thinking. I was able to request specific data to be collected from our awardees, and under the Biden administration, actually we explicitly defined some of the awards to prioritize items like climate and social justice. And those were the first projects to be put on hold for review with the current administration. And part of the big, beautiful bill that was just passed is trying to claw back some of the funds that were aligned with those projects. So even though the funds may have already been appropriated, a lot of that effort is currently like in limbo. And unfortunately, since I was part of the mass exodus, I don't know where it's gonna go. But yeah, that was what that comment meant.
Right. Okay. Okay. Indeed, it is tough times, but there was a lot of cause for hope. And perhaps we'll, if we have a bit more time in Q&A at the end, I'll give you my view as to why I think that is the case. Okay. So after break time, your climate career, wherever you are, clarity, community, commitment. We're going to have a look at developing these three essential aspects of any career. The first is clarity. And this is, like I say, this is essential because of your resource constraints. Simply, we only have a fixed amount of resource, whether that be our time, our money, our effort, what we can command, and levers of influence that we can pull. And so when we did that exercise and we thought about, well, what levers do you pull? What influence do you have? There's so many. But we have to pick. We have to focus. We have to decide. Now, if you've seen any of my work before, you probably recognize this slide. Because in order to move forward, you have to pick one. And it's the same with making a pivot. That kind of concept of I'm going to cast my net widely so I can see all possibilities. It is a terrible strategy because your efforts become too scattered. You have to marshal your efforts towards one thing. Now, I'm married into a Greek family, and my Greek wife likes to give me, sometimes helpfully, sometimes less, Greek or Latin derivations of English words. And so she recently pointed out that insecticide, homicide, pesticide, and decide all have the same root. The answer is to decide is not to pick one, it's to kill off the others. Decision and incision and decide is all to do with saying no. So your ability to say no massively increases your opportunity to carry one thing forward, which I know is almost like an Instagram like throwaway platitude, but it's so true. The challenge is, how do you say no and which ones? And the answer to that is all of decision science says that the most important thing about making a decision is about having the criteria first. Now, I use this filter analogy in all of my work because it is so important. Picking project work or future career decisions requires a degree of self-knowledge. And we can think about criteria like this filter as having 4 different types. There are the fundamentals, which I'm going to use to like looking for a new job as the example here. Fundamentals of work are the shape of work, like whether it is remote or whether there's a lot of travel, whether it's a big company or a small company. It's kind of like the life design stuff. It's often quite tied to the amount of time you want to invest in this. Are you 60 hours a day and this is it? Or are you more balanced because you're looking for a portfolio career or managing time with children, etc.? The shape of work is the fundamentals. Writing down what they are for you before you even start thinking about the opportunities is really important. Beneath that is the concept of your strengths, because when people say play to your strengths, what they're really saying is it is an unfair advantage when you do something you find easy that other people find hard. So knowing what your strengths are is also important. And then underneath that are your values. Now, I don't mean like the big values of plastics in oceans are bad. What I mean is things around whether it's reward for your effort or meritocracy. If you value this meritocracy, everyone gets a share, then that's going to shape how you think about your potential work, because you're more likely to find an alignment in a small startup where everyone is working at a weekend because there aren't enough people for it to go somewhere else. So everyone shares, everyone pulls together in a very cohesive way. And if you value meritocracy in that group kind of environment, you're going to need to do that. But on the other side, if you have that sense of, well, it's reward for effort that I have made, then a large scale consultancy is way more your vibe, because it's very much of a steeper curve and it's basically rewarded on your performance, irrespective of whether you're leading a team. But that kind of cultural difference is really important to be able to have your values reflected in. And then lastly, my favorite place to work is your sense of self. Now, we are many selves. I have come from the Jungian school of psychology. If you've seen the film Inside Out, you kind of know what I'm talking about. We have all these competing voices going on. And we can use that in a really helpful way. We can listen to those voices, the really quiet, repressed things that are talking to you, whispering about the things that you actually want to do, be more creative in your life, or to follow a particular area. And also recognize the ones which are less helpful, the imposter syndrome, the perfectionist, all of the spotlight, all of these sort of cognitive biases. Lay them all out with a little bit of an exercise to think about these voices on the inside. So that is a massive part of the work that I do in helping people figure out where to go and get some direction. But just taking an hour to think about these 4 different areas, writing down the criteria, what is it important to you? It's so important, because then when you have options, when you have to decide, well, is it something around the lunch and learn, or is it something around the, changing how stakeholders are managed within the company? You've got some way to judge. And the same with if you're looking at different career paths. And there's so many different things that you can do, but you have to decide, you have to kill off those that you don't find a degree of alignment to. So I'm going to leave that here. This sense of clarity, I cannot overemphasize how important it is. And I'm happy to spend more time either in Q&A at the end of this or on a one-to-one basis. This is, like I said, one of my favorite places to work. It's so important. However, once we've got, hang on, got a question. Do you have any references for decision-making frameworks? I will shortcut all of that to say 2 things. One, I'm going to have to stop taking questions here. We'll answer them at the end. But also, yes, Michelle Florino or Florentino. Again, remind me at the end and I will find her. She does, her whole thing is decision science. She is awesome. But yeah, remind me at the end and I will find or try and remember her name more correctly. Right, clarity. After clarity is community. Now, up front, I'm going to say that networking is a horrible word. It is transactional, and it favors this self-proclaimed extrovert. So I'm giving you permission to stop networking and instead to start community building and to find your tribe. And the reason for that is because for a lot of people, that word brings up images of awful small talk and transactional coffee chats, or like this sales mode energy. But in a climate career where jobs are often created, not posted, your ability to connect matters more than your CV. And in terms of making a change internally, you need to learn the best practices, and you cannot see ideas that you cannot have on your own. So you want this community of practice. And I want to offer you a different way to think about networking. I want you to think about it as curiosity, connection, and consistency. You don't have to be the expert. And in fact, just asking smart questions is sometimes way more valuable than pretending that you have all of the answers. So people remember genuine curiosity. It builds trust and it opens doors without pressure. In one of my early startups, I took the role of always asking the questions in the room that it was basically the stupid question, like the obvious thing that needed to be asked. And even though I often knew the answer, it was clear that it was the thing that was going unasked, and they just wanted somebody, and it was always me. Now, obviously, it helps that I was an outsider, so I could come in and pretend ignorance, but the teams didn't have this psychological safety to ask these questions. But just asking the smart question is such an important and powerful thing you can do. So the second one is this connection. And you can think of yourself as a connector, not just a seeker. You have more value to offer than you think, even if you're quite early in your transition or even early in your career. Maybe it's a podcast or a link, or simply saying, you know, you should meet so-and-so. You two people should come together. So you're able to offer a service and connect people to resources which are going to help. And the third is consistency. This is a long game. Building your support network, your community of practice, your future colleagues, collaborators, or co-founders, the people that you can lean in on when it hits the fan at work and your initiative or your plan hasn't worked out how you intended. You need this group. So consistency. This is a long game, and it means treating it like a project and not a panic button. So you can track who you've spoken to. You can note what you've learned from these conversations and what their needs are. The more you understand where they are, the more you're able to help. So you could use a CRM or a simple spreadsheet. And I have a resource pack, which I'm going to, you can download at the end. It's got like a simple CRM sheet in it, along with a comprehensive guide for like outreach emails and finding the right people. Basically, everything to do with this community building and these climate conversations. There's a whole sort of PDF guide with all the steps. Okay. So that brings us to everybody's favorite. So in the chat, in one word, tell me how you feel about LinkedIn. Okay, Adam, you really think it's helpful? Vanilla. Okay, so superficial. Mass chaos, modern Rolodex. So I've been asking this question on these type of events probably for a year, and I think people are slowly warming to it, because the vitriol that I got the first time I asked this is not coming through here. But what I have found is that 90% of my clients hate this, and the reason for that is we suffer from two things. We have the spotlight effect. It's a very well-known and documented psychological bias where we think more people are watching us than really are. And the second thing we struggle with is imposter syndrome. We have all of these shouty dickheads giving opinions about things, and we feel that we don't have a valuable input to contribute. But we don't need to see it this way. And so the opportunity here is to change how you see it altogether. And this doesn't apply just to LinkedIn. This is to all communities, like the Working on Climate Slack group. And it's to think of it as this ladder of commitment, or how to incrementally engage. Because without an expert point of view and with the tyranny of imposter syndrome, you can feel terrified of actually making steps and engaging, and it can feel very overwhelming. So the first step is simply to listen. Now, the challenge here is that so many feeds are just so full of so much shit that it just becomes arduous and painful. Well, the answer is you don't need it to be that way, because you can take 5 minutes a day to be the editor of your own magazine, because you can educate your algorithm to only show you what is going to be useful. So investing 5 minutes a day for just a week of this is useful, click comment, or just like these people, is a great way to start. But even smarter is, rather than letting the algorithm show you and tell you what's important, you can choose. And you can choose by doing the research to find the pracademics, the people who are practitioners and academics, the people who write the research papers and also are building products and solving the problems. You can find these people with, again, ChatGPT will help you with this. Bring a list of 10 people whose content that you is going to find useful in your chosen area. And instead of going and finding those people and then liking all their comments, if you just simply go to the search function, and then you can build a quick search query that says, show me all the content in the last 24 hours from this list of people, and then press show me. You've got this perfectly curated learning resource of the cutting edge thinking of your particular topic. And this is the key. You then copy the URL from the browser or bookmark it. And in that way, instead of scrolling through idle crap on LinkedIn, when you want to have 10 people tell you the most important things that are happening right now in your particular topic, you have one click and you'll have that delivered to your shining jab screen of a phone. So it's an incredibly powerful tool if you use it as a tool consciously, not passively. So that process, the steps on how to do that, again, it's in this guide, which I will happily share with you for free at the end. Okay, so listen and learn. The next thing is comment and engage. Now, this whole no community issue, well, without needing to have a big following, you can go and borrow the audience of the thought leaders in this space. Find, follow, and then comment. You can join these conversations, and which are meaningful because you've already filtered out all of the crap, and you're just finding where the people, find your tribe, find the people who are having useful conversations about the problem that you're trying to solve. And when you start commenting and engaging, then the eyes of your future colleagues and collaborators and co-founders are there too. Now, I'm not saying this is fast, but over the course of the next 12 weeks, I can almost guarantee you will find people who are like-minded and who are willing and able to genuinely engage in conversation. So listen, comment, curate. You start thinking about how you can serve your community. Well, that might be either you can repost something which is useful. And I don't just mean regurgitate, I mean add value by putting in another point of view. Because if you're doing this, you're starting to see and figure out the important parts of your particular niche. And so you can curate by reposting or reformulating or adding a point of view. And then finally, if you want to, there is no need, you can start creating, which is posting your own original thought and your own original thinking. So that always feels hard, but consider this. Consider providing a service to the people who are like you 10 hours of reading ago or 3 conversations ago, and just help them. You don't need to be the world's leading expert. You just need to be helping people who are just one step behind you. Because as you continue to do that, no matter how asinine it feels at the start, if you continue to help the people one step behind you, very soon you are standing at the top of an incredibly powerful community. Okay, so we have clarity of action and you have the community of people backing you up, supporting your change. But now you must address the single biggest barrier of all, which is You. So in my world, there is coaching and there is mentoring. Coaching is asking leading questions. Mentoring is giving the benefit of advice. Now, most of the time, life is too short for leading questions. People just want help. They're just like, just help me. Tell me what I should do. And it would be a massive disservice to the 30 years in the corporate experience and my work in climate to ignore all of that learning and not give advice because it's not strictly coaching. But what I find is that at some point, smart, capable, talented people like you recognize that one of the barriers is you, and it's how you're thinking, whether that be you've got a perfectionist streak, you've got imposter syndrome holding you back, you've got a lack of awareness about the different options, you've got self-sabotage going on, some little part of you. So after working with hundreds of people on this is one of the biggest takeaways. This imposter syndrome, perfectionism, fear, they're all quiet, seductive voices that stop us taking action in some way, shape, or form. And everyone has different versions or excuses. Like, I don't have this, or I can't do that because. Well, you can, but there often is an alternative way, like how to solve for that. So I want to have a quick look at how we can address this as the final exercise for today. And what we're going to do is have a quick look at commitment. Now, just to be clear, I am not your therapist, and we are not going to solve your lifetime of procrastination due to fear of rejection that happened at high school. But what we are going to do is the single most significant thing we can do in 5 minutes. We're going to name some of the barriers, and we're going to use a little psychological trick that involve episodic future thinking, construal level theory, and future self-continuity, none of which matters. What matters is you just need to know that this framing is highly effective in ways that might not feel obvious at the time. So, simple but powerful exercise. Is it going to be a pen and paper one? Just brings to surface the very real but often unspoken blockers that stop us from taking action. And we're going to do a barrier postcard. I'm going to write a postcard from the future, from your future, from you in the future. A you in which you have overcome the barriers and you are already doing the work that you want to do. And we're going to either take the form of the initiatives that we were talking about at the start, something you might want to do within the organization, or you're picturing you in a new job altogether. So starting with a blank piece of paper, and just to be aware that this might be something you want to come back to. So feel free to actually draw a postcard square or some other sort of physical thing. The first question is to start with the problem. And so imagining this future self is to write down, I nearly didn't start because, and whatever that comes up. Now, when we do this exercise more fully, what I tend to find is people will start with very pragmatic things like, I didn't start because I didn't have the skills, or I didn't have the network. And then with a little bit of poking, a little bit of prodding, after you get all those out of the way, there's things which start to really come down, really get to the bottom of it. Like, well, a lot of it might be the fear of not actually being expert enough. But you've already decided that before you've been told. And so it's this fear aspect. Or it might be that actually it's the lack of time. I nearly didn't start because I just couldn't make the time. Whereas a prioritization and there's an emotional connection, there is some resistance to you choosing to watch Netflix because you're knackered versus defining your future career and your future life. So there's something in there that's a little bit, it's the next level down. It's quite hard to get to, but that's where we're heading. So I'm going to give this 3 minutes just to like write down all the obvious ones and then see if you can figure it out underneath you. Okay. How are we getting on? Somebody give me a visible thumbs up. Actually, I'm going to shuffle who is on my screen so I don't keep spying on the same 5 people. Okay, well, actually, most people are off camera. That makes sense if you've just been told that someone's spying on you. Okay, during that interval, I've just dropped the profile of Michelle Florendo. That was the name I was looking for. Her work on decision science is awesome. And yeah, I've kind of built quite a lot of her work into the processes that I use as well. Okay, so I nearly didn't start because the follow-up sentence is, but I got through it by. And this is describing like the intervention. This is the thing that the reason, the resources that you pulled on. This is the why you didn't give up. And what we're looking for is to tap into your inner resilience. And again, when we do this kind of work more fully, there's a lot of creative problem solving and sort of like out of the left field thinking to sort of pull in things that might not be obvious. So that one about the time and making time and prioritizing, while there are some very pragmatic approaches like, well, I switched out this particular slot in my calendar for this. But really, the question of time is almost always one to do with emotion. And the reason why is because people don't do things because they think they should. They do that because they feel they should. And this is abundantly clear with the number of failed diets and wasted gym memberships. If you're going to do that because if you're on a diet because you think you should, then it's really hard to keep it going. If you choose to go on a diet because you don't want to die of heart disease and leave your children without a parent, it's a lot stronger and you're a lot more likely to actually make those life changes. Which is suddenly quite a bleak reference. This is the first thing that came to mind. So this question of time and priority is much more about the emotion. So finding the emotive why is the solution to making the time to take the actions that you want, as an example. So I got through it by. And again, we've got just a couple of minutes here. So I don't ask people to share the I didn't start because. But if you're up for it, dropping a couple of the ideas of around the I got through it by, like the solution, the approach, the way that you took it, and drop that in the group chat, that could be really helpful for someone else to pick up and recognizing themselves. Adam, those 3 words are incredibly powerful. It's funny how many people don't ask for help, and yet in retrospect would benefit from it so quickly. And when we think about asking for help, the who you will ask is quite an important part of it as well. You find someone who has enough context, but also without the biases which might also be holding you back. There's a lot of work goes into thinking around building a support team that are not going to keep you in the same paradigm. Because we often ask for help from our friends and family, people who love us, but they love us and they often want what's best for us, which isn't always making a dramatic change. And so the challenge often becomes finding someone who will stretch you and support you when you ask for help, rather than agreeing with you that it's hard and that you shouldn't do it. Okay, I'm going to give this 60 seconds more. Nice. I like the idea of shoving myself out of my comfort zone. A very dear friend of mine once said that anything worth doing isn't easy. And so you're right, it is hard. But that's why it's uncomfortable. All right. So we're kind of going to wrap this up a little bit now. This is the moment where I remind you that career change isn't a mystery. Career direction isn't about having more willpower. It's about having a structure. Now, I am a recovering management consultant, so my worldview is either a chevron diagram or a pyramid structure. Now, happily, this clarity of thinking, this method and process is incredibly effective when it comes to career design and when it comes to bringing structured behavioral psychology and science-backed support to help you use your time wisely to get this focus and to make some visible progress. So, if you've ever felt stuck in your own head or scattered with too many options or unsure where to start, that is the moment where structure can change everything. And we talked today a little bit about why clarity matters, because you can't optimize your time without clear priorities. And why community matters is because it's hard to do this alone. And why commitment matters, which is because ideas don't count, only action does. So I said at the start, what matters now is not that you've been here and that you've listened to this. What matters most is what you do next. And one of the things that I'd like to offer to help you with the next step is, if this talk is giving you the spark, then let's fan those flames. So you can download this this climate career conversations guide. And it has basically a whole step-by-step series of finding the people, building the community, doing some outreach, etc. The other two things I wanted to mention are we went to cohort 8 of the Master Your Climate Career Change program. 6 weeks to build clarity and credibility and visibility. Starts in 2 weeks' time. It is the way in which I get to help most people. And it is all about providing this like a structured approach to making a change to your career. If you download this guide, then I will be sending you some updates to your inbox, which for me always feels a bit awkward, feels a bit kind of salesy, but at the same time, if one person joins this cohort because I've been in your inbox, then I feel it justifies making a change. And the other thing is, happy to book a call. Let's see if I can help on a one-to-one basis. I've got 2 spaces for one-to-one work in September. And if you are in need of help that goes beyond these kind of things, then let's talk. Okay. This feels a little bit like a shameless plug, but it's mainly because I want to make a difference and I want to help. Because ultimately, I want to be able to answer the question from my children of me when they grow up and they ask me what I did. Because my answer is doing this and helping the smart, capable people like you make the impact that you deserve. Okay, so that's kind of it. We've got 19 minutes. I'm going to leave this on screen. I'm going to open for any questions. I had a couple that have come through which were pre-submitted. And I think I missed a couple in the chat. But now is also the time to drop in genuinely, literally anything into the chat for a question that you might have, whether that be about making a change in your current role or switching careers. You have my undivided attention. In the meantime, I will dig out a couple of questions that I got sent beforehand via LinkedIn. Okay. Let's start with that. Okay. So the couple that I was asked recently, and we'll jump back into the chat. A couple I was asked recently was, one is whether I thought that the sustainability job market was drying up and what that means for people. Is now a good time to try and switch? And my answer is twofold. One, it is never a good time to try and switch career. In very much the same way, it's never a good time to have a child. But actually, I'm not sure that analogy works. But the point is that it's never going to feel easy. It's never you look back at it and go, oh, well, this is dead easy and straightforward, because right now it's very easy. But what I do know is that I think it is a fallacy to say that there is a big shrinking of opportunity. What is happening is that a lot of sustainability work and climate work is being renamed and rebranded as part of this sort of visible withdrawal. So particularly with what's happening in the US, there is a lot of large organizations who are switching out their sustainability team and instead building or converting it into their supply chain efficiency team. And the way to think about this is that anything that has a reasonably well-proven return on investment already is going to stick around and is growing. So mostly the renewable sector, most of the supply chain stuff around decarbonization, because there is a genuine on-the-ground financial payback for that kind of stuff, although it is harder to find if you're still looking for the same roles and you're given the impression that those roles are shrinking in number, it's because they're being called something else. So first of all, the work still exists, particularly for those that have got just over the edge of that hype curve. What has happened is the money into the real cutting edge stuff like hydrogen cell efficiency, that's panic and is on pause. So if your work is something where you're kind of wearing a lab coat and you're at the bleeding edge, then yes, that's getting a lot harder, because right now the money isn't flowing there, it's flowing into the safer bets. So rather than give you a fixed point in time, I can give you, and as I keep saying, it is all about structure and process. The answer to the, well, what's the market doing and what is my point of view? The answer is, where is the money? Where is the money going? And a great resource for that is CTVC. It's a climate tech venture capital. And they publish I think it's monthly roundup and newsletter of the sectors into which money is currently pouring. And I think there are currently records being set in a number of sectors for investments. And you can be almost sure, you can use this hype cycle that right at the start, when the money first starts going in, it's very specialist, very technical. But once there is a certain tipping point of organizational size, then there is money for marketing, and they're going to need HR support and operation support and more of a sales team. So you can follow the money into particular roles and sectors that will give you an understanding of how the market is shaping up. Okay. We've got a whole bunch of questions here. I've got during introductory conversation with someone in the field you want to enter, what would you ensure you ask? Okay. My number one question to ask anybody is, why are you doing what you're doing? Because they didn't wake up one day and go, oh, I know, I'm going to do this. Because what you're looking to do in these kind of conversations, these introductory conversations, is you're looking to build empathy and relationship. You're not looking for the, can you tell me how to get a job? Because, well, frankly, that's too needy. That's not how, it's not a transaction. So show interest. And one of the greatest gifts that you can give someone is your attention. So asking them how and why they got into this particular line of work, and give them the space to explain, you're going to find out about the criteria that they were using. Even if they don't use this language, they'll tell you all about this particular sector and what was interesting to them about it, and the nuances and insights. And then you can ask them, you know, what was it hard, and where are the challenges? And you just you're letting them tell you their story of where they are right now. And it's easier to ask things that are in their past, because it's easy and it's a low cognitive load for them to be able to answer. So you're building this empathy by showing an interest in where they've come from. And as the conversation moves on, then you can move much more towards and where do you see this sector going? What challenges do you see as being most pertinent right now? So first of all, make it all about them at the start, and then move into a few forward-looking kind of questions towards the end of the conversation. Oh, sorry, Corey. Corey, okay, that was a question from you. Kat, I've got to go. Do you have any recommendations? Common certifications, credits, kidding, aiding their career transitions. Okay, one of my all-time favorite questions. What training should I do? The answer is do not waste your time and money on certifications yet. Because my answer and your answer is completely irrelevant. What matters is what the market tells you. And you cannot understand what the market will tell you until you have an absolutely crystal clear direction in which you want to head. And this comes back to that question of clarity. So people, if you go and do like a certification, well, no one cares. And there are two exceptions to this. One, if you just want a broad landscape view, like what are the problems that are currently extant and being worked on, then absolutely it's great. But until you have enough information to say, I want to work in alternative protein development or consumer adoption of alternative proteins, until you've got something really specific, then sort of asking around for, well, should I take more training? 9 times out of 10 is procrastination, because you can do more without having a certificate. Unless someone says you cannot have this job without this certificate, brackets, because it's a very technical role, then before you spend time thinking about it, be clear on the direction that you want to go, and then let the market educate you on what might be missing. That was for you, EO. Susan, similar. How frequently do your clients get new degrees or certifications in a climate-related topic before ending up where they went? My clients, never. Hope that helps. All right. Okay. I will give more context. All right. The reason for that is because it's finding the people is way more important. Because you can spend a year getting a degree, but if you spend that year finding the people and you have clarity, again, of the problem that you're trying to solve, then your ability to match what you currently have to a route into that is far more effective than sitting and doing a degree on the side. Obviously, I'm making massive generalizations here, but I'm doing so deliberately provocatively because I want you to sort of break out of that rut of you need qualifications, you need certifications. I'm going to do this before. Yes, at the end, if you are repetitively told you need this unless you can do, you need this before you can do something, then yes, it makes sense. But most of the time, your time and effort is much better spent working on the clarity of direction and the community of people, your future colleagues, collaborators, and co-founders that will enable you to get there. I want to start in a clean, green, oh, sorry, it's just school. I'm a student of chemistry and physics. Excellent choices, me too. I want to take action, not search. There is a lot of research, but no action. As Mara, this is a grand problem. A lot of research and no action. So some of my very dear friends all went on to do PhDs and have now struggled to come out of academia into taking action because of this concern of they were writing papers that were very very insular to the community in which they were working in. And so there is a whole approach of shifting from academic into corporate or into private sector work. And if you want more advice about that, then I think I've got a couple of interviews with academics who have made that transition in the free resources on my website to have a look at. Claire, is this a question? The emphasis on clarity helpful. I'm realizing part of why I've struggled is that I'm trying to compensate for sluggish job market by casting a wide net. Yes, Claire. Exactly. Focus, focus, focus. Is the answer. Okay, I'm scrolling up and down now. So if I've missed a question in here, do tell me. How can, oh, got one. How can we demand that AI companies engineer better solutions so they stop stripping? That is above my pay grade. The resources. Yep, that's, I mean, I can make suggestions, but I am in this role on this conversation. I am here in career coach and mentor. That is a very big question and probably involves a mix of regulation, consumer action, and positive return on investment for that change to happen. Okay, I believe they are the end of our questions. So I'm going to bring us back to our hosts, and I'm going to finish up personally by saying mainly thank you for caring. Like, these events, they restore my faith in humanity. To have the 100 or so people sign up to come and listen to this and to because you want to take action is enormously rewarding, and it is a constant reminder of why I spend my time doing what I'm doing. So thank you for caring, and thank you for wanting to make a difference. And if you let me know, then tell me what it is that I can do for you. Get in touch. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am there most days. And then, yeah, have a think about whether you want some more structured work together. And just let me know. Meanwhile, Work on Climate team, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for that wonderful talk. I know I have a lot to think about. I'm sure everybody else does, and I'm excited to make my LinkedIn more useful. So thank you everybody for joining our session. We hope you're leaving feeling encouraged and you've got something useful that you can get you going on your career journey. Please note that we're sharing a couple of links in the chat here. Michonne shared them. And please just take a couple minutes before you guys leave to give us some feedback by scanning the QR code or clicking that link in the chat. It really helps us to make these events work for you guys in the future. And if you're not a part of Work on Climate yet, you can check out the link and figure out how to join and get more involved. And we're also sharing a few links for connecting with Andy. So thank you again, everybody, and thanks for joining. We hope we'll see you at the next one.